The Coven of Andy and Leyley is a game that's gotten pretty popular recently. Sadly, it's not popular for the reasons it should be, and its current reputation probably does more harm than good. This video will contain spoilers for both of the currently available chapters. The Coven of Andy and Leyley is an RPG Maker horror comedy game with visual novel elements and some puzzle solving. The Steam description calls it a walk and talk adventure with light puzzling. It's one of those games that you play more to experience the story than to enjoy the gameplay. The story is about two siblings, Andrew and Ashley Graves, trying to survive an unfortunate situation. After a supposed pandemic breaks out, they get indefinitely quarantined in their apartment. Over time, their situation gets worse and worse. Eventually, the food they are supposed to be getting stops coming, and the siblings start getting desperate. After witnessing their cultist neighbor die during a summoning ritual, they resort to cannibalism. That's the story setup in a nutshell, but it would be dishonest to say that's what the game is about. The game is actually about the two protagonists, Andrew and Ashley, and how they interact with each other. They're both horrible, mentally broken people stuck in a codependent relationship. Ashley's character is that of a manipulator. She will use any and every opportunity to manipulate Andrew to get what she wants. Andrew initially appears to be the more stable one of the two, but as the game progresses, he's shown to be, in many ways, just as bad as Ashley. Both of them know everything there is to know about each other, which becomes really useful when the siblings argue or when Ashley tries to manipulate Andrew. All of this is due to how they were raised. Ashley was a problematic child, and for that reason was neglected by her parents. Andrew, feeling bad for her, started caring for her, and he became the only person in her life that treated her decently. With time, she became more and more possessive of her brother, because without him she was left alone. Her dependence on him turned into a codependence, when one day she convinced Andrew to help lock her classmate in a chest for the crime of wanting to spend time with her brother. Ashley orchestrated the plan, but Andrew was the one who ultimately sealed the girl's fate. Ashley wasn't emotionally affected at all by what happened, but it left a permanent psychological mark on Andrew. Since no one could know that they were responsible, he's been stuck with Ashley ever since. Whether it's the blackmail she has on him, or the fact that she's the only one that could help him calm down when he feels the guilt of his actions. After that event, Ashley's manipulative and possessive behavior has only gotten worse, harassing and sending death threats to anyone who tries to, in her mind, take Andrew away from her. This game isn't about cannibalism or about human sacrifice, but about this character dynamic, and watching these two characters interact is where the game's horror is hidden. All the other elements that are normally associated with horror are played for laughs at one point or another, but the psychological abuse these two characters put themselves through is among the only things taken mostly seriously. A lot of the time, the way these two characters interact is extremely uncomfortable, whether it's them arguing, bantering, or comforting each other. This game has a certain reputation online. If you've heard about this game, it's likely because of incest. There's no denying it. There's often sexual tension between the two siblings. However, the popular narrative that it's a game about incest is wrong. The incest is an extension of the mental abuse theme, and unlike what some people may have you believe, it's not fetishized or romanticized. It's implied at a few points in Chapter 1, but it appears more prominently as one of the plot threads in Chapter 2. The game doesn't include it as something to go into or as some sort of fan service, it's there to make you uncomfortable. It doesn't appear out of nowhere for shock value, it's part of the greater point, and it makes sense for these specific characters in this specific story. One of the main differences between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 is that Chapter 2 has you switch between playing as Ashley and Andrew at certain parts, while all of Chapter 1 is shown from Ashley's perspective. This affects more than just which character sprite is shown in the overworld. Sometimes, the game will show you the thoughts of whoever you're currently playing as. These somewhat recontextualize Andrew's character. Despite trying to keep a stoic appearance, mentally he's just as broken as Ashley. Several of his thoughts and other pieces of dialogue imply that he has feelings for his sister, but there is one scene, known online as that scene, that pretty much proves that fact. For context, in Chapter 1 Ashley successfully performs the summoning ritual and obtains a demonic talisman that allows her to see visions in her sleep. In Chapter 2, after a second sacrifice, if the player picked certain dialogue options, the demon will tell Ashley to bring her brother along for the next vision. During the dream, you get to see a simplified version of Ashley's life, and at the end you're asked to choose between a questionable path and a sane path. If you choose the questionable path, you get a vision of the two siblings after they did the deed. Ashley, as always, takes the chance to mock Andrew, but his reaction is the most interesting part. He's not disgusted, he looks like he got caught. Andrew's character is all about keeping up appearances. This doesn't just apply to his fucked up feelings towards his sister, but to his entire character. He has to keep up an appearance of a normal person, and not someone who ate his neighbor. He has to pretend that he's innocent, and that every single time he killed someone is because his sister forced him to. But he knows that's not true. When Ashley mocks him for killing that girl, she's right. He chose to lock her in that chest, with persuasion from his sister of course, but still. He's the one that came up with the plan to hold a cleaver to a woman's throat to lure a human sacrifice, and then slit her throat when she tried to defend herself. Some of his skills can be argued to be self-defense, but most can't. One of the main plot threads in Chapter 2 is Andrew and Ashley trying to rob their parents. After breaking in and checking out their new place, they get caught by their mother who comes home before they expect. The mother appeared in one Chapter 1 cutscene, but Chapter 2 really expands on her character. Her conversations with Andrew reveal a lot about why everything went the way it did. It's clear that she really hates Ashley. She implies Ashley was a problematic child, which can tell us a lot about how Andrew became so spineless. It seems that her love towards her children was conditional and applied only when they weren't being problematic. Andrew adapted by becoming passive and never standing his ground, while Ashley didn't and was subsequently neglected. The mother is, in general, a pretty awful person. If you pay attention and cross-reference some dialogue, you can figure out that the pandemic that locked the siblings in their apartment for months didn't exist, and was actually an organ harvesting operation that their parents were in on. That's how they were able to afford a fancy home. When she's confronted about parts of the scheme, she lies straight to her son's face. If you examine the letters that are in front of their door, you can see she calls the supposed fire that would have killed both of her kids a blessing in disguise. Even though she's an objectively horrible person, she can't fully be blamed for her shitty parenting. If you cross-reference her dialogue with the official character information from the store page, you can figure out that she got pregnant with Andrew and Ashley at ages 15 and 17 respectively, which is obviously way too early to give your children proper care. However, this doesn't excuse her future actions. One character that you might be wondering about is the father, but he's not that important in the grand scheme of things. He only has a few pieces of dialogue in the entire game, and he doesn't seem to care much for his children. Most of what he says boils down to agreeing with his wife. His unimportance is further demonstrated by the lack of his character portrait. Not everyone gets one, but even some minor characters like the cult leader or the woman from Room 302 get their own portraits. The mother's behavior is a good example of another one of the game's themes, shifting the blame. There's always someone or something that you can shift the blame to avoid confronting the fact that you're an awful person. Chapter 2 can conclude in several ways. Which ending you get depends mostly on Andrew's decisions in your parents' house. After the mother apologizes to Andrew for making him raise Ashley, she offers him a way out. No matter which option you pick, both parents die soon after, but this choice makes Andrew reconsider everything that has happened so far. Accepting the offer leads to the DK ending, where Andrew starts believing that there is a way out for him, and that he doesn't need Ashley. He gets colder towards her, and her usual manipulation tactics stop working as well as they used to. He starts acting on his desire to be set free. Declining the offer has much more interesting implications. Doing that leads to the burial route, where Andrew sides with Ashley and starts letting his mask slip. He realizes that, despite constantly being manipulated, he's actually content with his situation. He needs Ashley just as much as she needs him. He stops pretending he's a normal person, and in the process becomes more like his sister. The player may take this further by letting Andrew acknowledge even the worst ideas that enter his head. Despite being the morally worse ending, both characters end up happier. To sum things up, The Coffin of Andy and Leyley is a game that's way better than people give it credit for. I haven't been so uncomfortable reading game dialogue for a long time. It's filled with subtle details that give more context to how the siblings view things differently. It's funny when it wants to be, it's uncomfortable when it wants to be, and it definitely deserves that 98% positive rating that it has on Steam. Even though the game isn't finished yet, it tells a story with more layers than most AAA story-driven games, and it's really unfortunate that most people know the game just for the incest. Also, word of warning. Don't check the Twitter community, don't check the subreddit, and for the love of God, do not check the Steam artwork tab. You know how the game leaves some of the themes up to player interpretation? These people do not see it the way I do. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, and you probably did since you're here, leave a like, and if you want more content like this in the future, subscribe. Maybe leave a comment telling me what you think. If you're one of the people who comes to my channel exclusively for postal content, don't worry, it will return.